So welcome to Deerbox. This is our headquarters, this factory we built 18 months ago. And this processes about 100 fallow deer a week right now. And basically it's an all-in-one system. The deer go in the far end and they come out the other end as beautiful trimmed racks, chops, you name it, which gets sold partially in box form to the general public and partially as whole carcasses to restaurants. It's an awesome system, and it really is this whole circular thing of life and death and management that we're trying to do. You know, this whole deer management thing, it isn't sporting hunting to us, it's like farming but in the wild. That's why we call things farming the wild. So let's go and have a look what we do. So here in the packing area for Deerbox, so here we've got a whole bunch of boxes ready to go out, and the boxes go out with wool insulation, everything beautifully blast frozen, labeled, cut, packed by Wayne and Darren, our butchers, and we send these out 2 or 3 times in the course of a week. This week about 100 boxes going all over England and, well, Britain. Let's go through and see how it all works. So the deer come in here and they come in by van from our various larders around the place, and they come in, they get weighed, come into the dirty room, the infer room. Today is our big skinning day of the week, so it gets a bit grubby on the floor, but then at the end of the day, everything is bleached and power washed, so it's like a hospital. Here are the deer, all fallow here. Some muntjac at the end. Here we are, muntjac. Nice fallow deer. Lovely. It's a prime time of the year. This year we're going to do, this week rather, we're going to do about 90 deer through this establishment. Then once that's happened, come through here, and here we've got the skinning process.
Out through the neck. This is the bit that we attach to the cradle. We could pull back to release the armpit. All we're doing is just releasing this shoulder. That's all we want to do, so that when it comes to the winch, it doesn't shred the meat. Same again on the other side. The whole point is when we start skinning, we always want the hair to fall away from the meat, so you're stopping any cross-contamination as much as possible. So from the moment we start pulling the skin, the hair is always away from the clean meat. Front legs. And then that skin that we've just taken off the armpit is what we then attach to the winch on the bottom as an anchor point. You wouldn't believe the amount of tension the skin will take. And then once it's on, you just have to watch for a bit of ripping around the armpit down the side. Drop the neck down. We'll always, this is a nice clean head and neck shot animal anyway. We will always inspect the neck. We will usually just trim the tip of the neck off, so that when it comes to the veterinary inspection, it's just a nice clean, there's no blood damage anywhere. One extremely clean carcass, obviously a proof inspection of the animal, but that's a very well presented carcass. Quick check of the weight, which is 22.6, which we'll go and fill in. Pick that up, and it comes onto this hook here, goes to Will's side, and then Will fill out a tag which just has a corresponding number to the paperwork into the chiller with the rest of them. The butchers can come, they can look at the number on the tag, and it will tell them the weight and then the corresponding information, date it was shot, where it's come from, they need to find it. On to the next one.
That deer, after it's skinned, then gets a fresh label put on it, a tag which relates to the previous tag that was on it, its weight, its sex, name, number, everything. Then it goes into the clean room here, which is a beautiful, pristine environment. And in here we have the carcasses all hung up. And you can see you've got various different types of conditioning. You've got some that might be a little thinner, some that have got more fat on them, depending on where they're from, etc. But these deer will hang in here for 2 or 3 days like this, setting up, and then Wayne and Darren, the butchers, get to work on about half of them, the other half will go to restaurants. So here in Deer Box, Master Butcher Wayne is butchering a carcass for our crew. First he removes the shoulder by taking the knife down between the shoulder blade and the ribs. Next, Darren is removing the knuckle and folding it back on the shoulder itself, and that's a shoulder ready to be cooked whole. Now Wayne is removing the ribs using the saw, and that's a rack of deer ribs. Flip it over, repeat on the other side. Now he's removing that lovely flank meat off the ribs, and that's going to be rolled up and can be braised slowly as a gorgeous belly of fallow deer. One of my favourite dishes. Now Wayne's going in at the second rib and removing the neck. First a cut with a sharp knife, and now a few strokes with the bone saw. Now he's trimming out some of the fat prior to breaking the deer into 2 large sections. He's counting the ribs, and now he's cutting off the front part, which will be braising meat, neck meat. Trimming some of the fat that runs up the inside, and now he's got the saddle trimmed, and it's time to remove it from the pelvis. So he's gone through, straight through here, through the joint between the pelvis and the haunches. And now he's cutting out the chine bone so that we can make a French trimmed rack. So that is the sword gently and carefully going into the actual rib joints. And now you see very neatly that whole rack coming off in one piece. Beautiful meat. And you can see what he's doing here is he's peeling off the sinew and the outer layer. And now cutting between each of those ribs to make a starting point on both sides, and that's your guideline. So that's the point at which the bones will be cleaned to. Now scraping the outside breaks the capsule that the ribs sit in with the tip of the knife. Allows you then to peel the whole thing in one go back and leave you with perfect white bones with no meat sticking on them at all. It's a very restaurant-y thing, but it's actually very easy to do. Using a cloth there just to wipe it. And now he's going to grab a hold and tease it backwards. And those little bits of meat in between the ribs don't get wasted, they get turned into beautiful ground venison. And look how perfect those bones are. Now separating the chain from the loin. You don't want that on there. And there is the sinew taken off the top, and there we have an absolutely immaculate French trimmed rack of fallow deer. Surely the king of roasting joints, each person getting perfect portion control. Next, for T-bones, band sawing right down the centre of the spine. And cutting those into perfect T-bones. Look at those bad boys. Just gorgeous, amazing on a grill. And this on the bone style of butchery really elevates your carcass. If you've got your hard won deer of the year, following these type of techniques makes such a massive difference. Really opens your guest size up to different ways of eating venison. Now here's the haunch or the ham. And this is a technique called seaming. It's a French style of butchery, and literally it is just following the individual seams between those 5 primal muscles. That one's called the salmon. Trim it out. And this is very, very easy to do. Remove the thigh bone there. And that's the, there we are, that's the nut coming off, often used as a roasting joint. This is the chump or the top rump, one of my absolute favourite pieces. That's a beautiful steak for 2 people, that just marinated and grilled. Just removing a little sinew. This is the silver side. You can see the big silver membrane along the near side. That is why this cut of meat is called the silver side, exactly the same as in beef. And he will remove that silver side by sliding the knife under and out. And nothing gets wasted here. These sinew trimmings and the bits that we don't want to turn into normal ground meat, we use a second class ground meat. We put it through the mincer once, and a lot of our clients like to feed their dogs on this. Although it's human grade meat, it might have a little bit of sinew in it, so dogs love it. It's good for them, full of collagen. And then the primer stuff gets put through the mincer twice, turned into stunning meat. You see a little bit of grey on the top of the meat there, that's oxidization. This deer's hung for a week. That can be easily removed. This is the nut, and the nut cuts beautifully into 2, down the line of the central sinew, into 2 beautiful pavés or steaks.
So I'm going to go back and cook my bunch of people lunch. I've got the beautiful French trim racks and some T-bones. Perfect way. They started the day in the forest, seeing the whole process from start to finish. We're going to end up eating them for lunch, and that is how it should be. It's wild game management at its finest.